I think it's the worst kind of perpetrator when you can brutally murder a child, get away with it, and live a perfectly normal life. There are thousands of murdered missing children, and they don't have a name. They don't have any match to any missing persons case that would be obvious, so they're just lost. A lot of these cases usually fall into two categories. Either it's a crime where someone completely unknown to the family has abducted this child. Sherri Ann Jarvis is an example where the child was reported missing by her family.
She was a 14-year-old girl. She had a little bit of trouble with truancy. She basically ran away and clearly had made her way down to Texas in 1980, and then unfortunately was murdered on Halloween.
Even now, it's very difficult to connect remains found somewhere completely different to a person missing in another state. So when we were able to use the technology to identify Sherri Ann Jarvis, that led to being able to finally close both the missing person case and also the body that was found here in Walker County. But some of these cases aren't like that. What we see most of the time when we solve these cases is these children were murdered or taken by someone that was very close to them. Opelika Jane Doe Amore Wiggins was a little girl found on the riverbed. She had been brutally beaten and murdered, and we knew that she was between the ages of 3 and 6 years old when the body was found, but nothing else about this little girl. When the technology was used to build a profile, it led back to her parent, and they went to the father first, and his response was, "I never had a daughter." And then they had to do genealogy on the maternal side. They went back to the mother, and the mother was like, "Of course he had a daughter. I still pay child support." She didn't know where her daughter was. She was hoping one day she'd turn 18 and they would rekindle their relationship because he didn't let her keep contact with her. Her father was a well-respected, perfect member of his community, yet he was perfectly fine, brutally beating his child for years, torturing her, blinded her, took all her teeth out, buried her in the bottom of a riverbed, and continued to collect a paycheck from her mom. He and his current wife, Amore's stepmother, have been arrested in connection with her death, and they will stand trial in August 2026. Project 525 was started so that we can give murdered missing children their names and identity back. It's a collaboration between Othram and RTI, the contractor for NamUs. NamUs is the National Missing and Unidentified Database here in the United States. Project 525 is named after 525. May 25th is Missing Children's Day. We took 525 children that were murdered recently so that it's more likely that the perpetrator is still out there with possibly other children in their custody. And we are trying to identify them, and then that leads to identifying who murdered them, what happened to them the last few days of life. It's not always family that murdered them. Sometimes they are missing children, and you help identify them, and then that leads their family to get answers. But when it is family, the stories are even more heartbreaking to me because those kids were really failed by the system completely. These children are often not even a case on someone's desk because the people that murdered them are the ones that were protecting them or should have been protecting them. And so they don't even report them missing. And they're nameless forever. And they're not in CODIS. No one's looking for them. In fact, they're hiding the fact that they're gone. We've had one case where we had a very unique situation out of Project 525. It was the abduction of a child, and we were able to identify the person that took the child as their biological mother, which led to actually being able to find the girl living in Mexico right now and reunite her back with her father almost 30 years later. We had a case out of Virginia where the little boy was burned and then thrown in a field. The father had worked really hard to try to identify where his son was. He even said he thought the mom had something to do with it. The mom stood trial for this, but because there was no body, they could not move forward with this trial. And we were able to identify this body decades later, and it led to her being able to be prosecuted for the crime that she had committed many years before. This technology in Project 525 makes it impossible for someone to conceal murdering a child, even if that body is found decades later. Sooner than later, we'll live in a world where if someone murders a child, they're held accountable for it, not 20 years later, but as soon as that body is found. And that's important to me. Sherri Ann Jarvis was a beautiful girl. Her picture's forever etched in my mind, and some horrible human being took that away from her in the most horrific way. And now there's real hope.
We're working on finding the person that did this to Sherri, trying to determine if they've done it to anybody else. Are they still out there? Is there still a continuing danger to society?
Once you know who your victim is, once you can piece together the end of their life, law enforcement's really good at figuring out who did it.
40 years later, we found out that she had been in Colorado, where we initially knew that there was information from. So we're following up on those leads. I get calls probably 3-4 times a month from people who have information on somebody who they think has possibly been involved in this. We follow up on everything. I hope that one day I will be able to contact everybody in that family and let them know that the person who is responsible for Sherri's death has had their judgment day.